think, at this point, to not really being someone who thought that psychoanalysis had an awful lot to say to me. And so the story behind this paper is that we decided that since having set up the seminar series, we ought to read something together by somebody who was taking a psychoanalytic stance. And so, as I say, I didn't really think it had much to say to me. But, in fact, I found it did, because a bit of the paper that I'm going to tell you about speaks to us a lot about our emotions about maths. And the issue that Laura and I are going to address here really is this problem of do we look inside ourselves or do we look outside to the discourses that surround us? And I think normally I would kind of position myself where Dylan is. But one of the things that Dylan has said is, where does the agency come in? And for me, I'm thinking, well, maybe there is some kind of answer here. But what I'm going to do is just talk you through this paper that we read and the basic ideas, or certainly what I'm understanding of those basic ideas, because I must emphasise I'm not an expert. And also then tell you a bit about our response to this paper from our own maths biographies that we wrote. And you've got quite a lot of the information on the information that we sent you already. Okay, so this is the psychoanalytic take, guys. Right, so this is Jacques Nimier's account. And basically, what he's talking about is how we use maths. And he's saying really that we can use it in one of two ways. We can either use it as something to defend against anxieties that we have, or we can use it to embody anxiety, and then we defend against maths in order to do that. So in the next few slides, I'm going to show you how this idea works. He's got 6 defence mechanisms that he talks about. They fall into 2 groups of 3, and the first 3 are phobic defences. On the information that I sent out before, I gave you this statement that Jacques Nimier uses in his research. And so on each of these slides, I've picked out one that he picks out as being indicative of this particular kind of defence mechanism. So here you've got the phobic defence, phobic avoidance. So here he's saying anxiety is displaced onto maths, and the maths becomes something which is impossible, and he uses, oh, it didn't work. Shouldn't have done that. Oh, different system. On my PowerPoint, the original one disappears, and then you get this lovely italicised quote sitting on its own, although you have got the quote on the information that we sent out before. But basically, it's a quote that he says is somebody describing a phobic avoidance. And the maths is not approachable because there's a veil in front of it. Here's the next one, it's repression. So in this idea, what he's saying is that we deal with it by deciding that it's something that's irrelevant to us, something that we don't really have to take any notice of. And of course there's a problem with all of this because maths is actually imposed on all of us up until the age of 16. So our relationship to maths is as something that we have to do, but we don't see it as important. And I guess this is going to do the same. Yes, it did. It makes the talk faster, which is maybe a good thing. Okay, here's the third phobic defence, and that's projection. And this is the idea that you project something, usually some anxiety about yourself, onto maths, and then maths becomes something which is dangerous. And it has the extension of that is as maths sucking you into madness, really, which is something which resonates with Heather's research on maths and popular culture. And so many mathematicians are portrayed as mad. really. I think we've already seen something similar to that today. Right, this is the first of the other three, and here is reparation. Reparation is about emphasising creativity, and it shows that we invest emotional energy in maths if we're using reparation. So it's about constructing new things. This idea perhaps speaks more to us as people who like maths rather than the first three. Introjection is using maths as a way of providing order in our lives. So Nimier does something important here. He focuses on the idea that maths has a very precise language, that it's very rule-bounded, that it has a lack of redundancy, and the compulsory nature of its rules, he says, can be then used to restore some order in our lives. One of the things that I want to flag up in this as I start looking at Nimier's work here is that he is starting himself to evoke particular difficulties about maths, which are very interesting, and so we need to come back to that. And here we have finally reversal into the opposite. This is where we deal with bad feelings, deal with things that we feel uncomfortable about, fill the void, attain peace through maths. One of the problems with reversal into the opposite, however, is that if you fail at maths, then you are really putting yourself on the line. So it has a threatening side to it. So although getting the solution can make you feel great, failure can make you feel very, very bad. And the stakes are very high once you're into this kind of thing. Because it means that you can become more anxious if you're using maths as a reversal into the opposite. So in assessment terms, if this is something that you particularly use, then you are vulnerable in an assessment situation because you're vulnerable to failure. Okay. So one of the things that struck me at the time when we read this was why maths? You know, why would people hook all of these things up to maths? Why not English or history? And Nimier's answer to that question is the one that I've already hinted at. It's to do with what he sees the rigour of maths, its lack of ambiguity. And he says that more than any other discipline, it has the power to revive deep anxieties. So that's something that Nimier is saying is actually essential to the nature of maths itself. But one of the things that we've also noticed is that Nimier is himself invoking these very powerful discourses about maths in order to present this argument. So it seems that we really probably can't ignore those discourses. So for instance here, a quote here from Helen Lucy, which is talking about if we want to understand emotional processes, we need to look at some kind of interlocking of the psychic and the social cultural. So Laura and I would like to argue that we need a psychosocial approach really, that Nimier doesn't really do the job just as he stands. He's drawing on something else which is very, very fundamental. We did this thing which I told you about on the notes, which is inspired by Nimier because we were. We could feel a lot of resonance with the things that he was talking about, so we all went away and wrote our own maths biographies. They were very interesting and we shared them. We found a lot of similarities in our accounts, a big focus on ability and markers of ability, which are around selection and assessment, discourses of maths and cleverness, competition, and there were also gender themes which were quite powerful in what we were talking about.